Hey, what is going on you guys, it's Epic here, and as you can see, I am BL3 Maya, and I'm standing in front of a Fortnite battle bus inside of Borderlands 2. You are not looking at post-production magic, you are actually looking at in-game footage right now. This is really inside of Borderlands 2. And I wanted to make this video today because this is a massive breakthrough for the Borderlands 2 modding community. If you're familiar with my work, you might know me from the Redux mod, and that is where I caught my big break as a modder. I started modding over 3 years ago, and when I first started, I barely even knew how data table entries worked, and then it slowly grew into like making custom projectiles, abilities, skills, and so much more, to the point where now I've decided to try Borderlands 2 modding, and have actually made a huge historical breakthrough. Now, I do apologize if the next thing I say has some misinformation in it, but I have done a bunch of research and have been unable to find any conclusive evidence anywhere, which is why I'm going to say that I believe I am the first person in Borderlands modding history to ever get full-on skeletal mesh and static mesh replacement working in Borderlands 2. This game has been out for over 10 years and the modding community has ripped it apart and built it back up in so many ways, but the one thing I haven't actually seen to this date is what we've been able to pull off here. I'm going to go into my inventory and you'll see that I have a head customization, which is the BL3 Maya head model. Now, there is a few things that is wrong with this, which I want to point out right away, and that is that her hood doesn't stay on her shoulders, and this is basically an unavoidable problem, although I do think I have a way of potentially fixing it. So basically what the problem is here is that if I was to give this hood bones and then have it stick to her shoulders, I think we'd end up with a lot of visual artifacts and glitches here. One of the ideas I did have was to pull the hood inwards and stick it to her neck, but I think that would also look weird. And then I asked a few people what they thought about it, and they said that all in all, if it's a head mod and it's like a head customization, they actually don't mind it looking like you're just wearing like a Halloween mask, so it actually makes sense that the hood doesn't move, because you want to feel like you're wearing the BL3 Maya head outfit. Now, the next thing that is slightly wrong with this mod, as we are still basically in the early stages of getting this all working, is that I haven't set it up to swap colors properly when you go and change your customization. So if I swap my skin here, you'll see that it doesn't actually change color. I mean, some of them slightly affect her skin, but all in all, the color of her hair and the hood stayed the same, which I would like to get working at one point. But also at the same time, like I just mentioned, it is a lot cooler in my opinion that it doesn't change color, because it is supposed to be the BL3 Maya, and she doesn't have yellow hair. Now, real quick, before we talk about some of the difficulties we're currently facing with this progress in modding, I want to give a huge shout out to another modder called Salva. Now, Salva is someone that I know from the COD Zombies modding community, and I hit Salva up because I was having an issue getting skeletal mesh replacement to work. For those of you who aren't aware what skeletal mesh is, it's basically like any normal model in a game, except it has bones inside of it, and these bones are rigged up to the model to make sure that when the player moves or does some form of animation, so does the model. It moves accordingly, it looks natural. And while I was able to already get stuff like Maya's head in the game, I wasn't able to animate her head with the character. So she would just be static there and the head wouldn't move when the player moves. So I hit up Salva and said that I was having issues with the vertex weighting, and Salva went into Maya, did some work on Maya, which I find actually pretty funny, and then I kind of just picked his brains for a little bit, saw how that all works, and I'm still very new to using Maya. It's not a program I'm very familiar with at all, but in a sense we just needed to learn how to vertex weight the characters, and then also one thing that we needed to do was UV map them basically all over again. And that's going to bring me into my next point, which is some of the difficulties we're currently facing with this technology. And before we do that, I just want to give one final thank you to Salva again, because really, like, that was the big barrier that we broke down, which got us into the realm of like, now we can do skeletal mesh replacement. So now I want to get the community involved and give you guys an update on what we're currently struggling with and some of the things that we've been trying to get but haven't achieved just yet. So first of all, just ending off on the skeletal mesh side of things, I want to just kind of go over how the bones actually work. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, we are playing as BL3 Maya, which is absolutely sick. But one of the things I got to bring up is like Maya's hair. You can see her hair that's hanging down here. this is not animated. And the reason for this is because this most likely uses other bones which we are not getting access to in Borderlands 2 through like head customization. And I think that's fine. I don't think it's a deal breaker. At the end of the day, it's a first person game, so you're never going to see her hair waving around anyway. And she still looks cool regardless, but we can't get other stuff like that animating randomly, or like her hood flapping around. Who knows, maybe in the future though. Another problem is adding new meshes to the game. A lot of people aren't a fan of when mods replace things, and I know the Borderlands 2 modding community for a long time worked very hard on actually adding and not replacing. So we currently right now don't know if it's possible to add new heads or stuff without replacing. My Maya head mod, it goes and replaces the Alkaline Mistress head. By choice, you can choose whatever you want to replace, it's completely up to you. But yeah, I don't know if we can add new stuff yet. If I'm being honest, I haven't actually looked into that. I just was like more happy to get this done, period. So yeah, I wasn't sure if it would be a good idea or not to try and mess around there. But hopefully we can add new stuff. For example, I've added the Fortnite Battle Bus into Borderlands 2 because I can. And this is all well and good, but unfortunately there are some difficulties that come with static mesh replacement also. So the biggest difficulty with static mesh replacement is that Borderlands 2 works on a package basis, which means it loads a bunch of packages into the game, like the levels are all individual packages. And if you swap a static mesh out, you have to replace it in every package it is present. So like the Fortnite Battle Bus has to be replaced in every package that the wrecked van exists, because that's what I use to put the Battle Bus into the game, if I want it to show up in every single map. Now you may be thinking, well that's like really good, Epic, because that way you can choose where you want your meshes to be shown on. Like what if you don't want battle buses all over the dust, right? But this is actually a bad idea because unfortunately texture replacement doesn't work the same way. So if I change the wrecked van texture to the battle bus texture, getting it ready for the static mesh, but I decide to not change the wrecked van on the dust into a battle bus, now I'm going to have a wrecked van with a battle bus texture, which is going to look horrible, right? So I hope you can kind of see what I'm getting at here and why this is a little bit problematic. And additionally, another problem that we have really been running into is UV mapping. Now, I am not an artist, I am not familiar with UVs at all, I suck at UVs, it is a very, very big annoyance of mine, and this is a problem. Now, why is this a problem? Well, first of all, let me just give you guys kind of like a quick explanation of what a UV map is, which is going to be filled with a ton of misinformation because I still get confused by them to this day. But it is basically unwrapping a mesh onto a flat surface so that you can texture it. Jesus Christ, I hope I got that right. But this is an issue because we currently don't know how to add new materials to a mesh. So in the case of Maya's head, for example, Maya's head in Borderlands 3 uses up numerous materials. So it uses up, first of all, her head mesh, but stuff like her long hair pieces and her hood, those are completely separate materials which get thrown onto the mesh. So Maya's head obviously will use her own material, and then the hood and the hair pieces are another material. However, unfortunately, because we're replacing, for example, the Siren head in Borderlands 2, which has one material on it, well, now we run into a problem, because we can't put two separate, like the clothing and the hair and then the head material all at once. And in Maya's from BO3's case, we actually had a problem where we also had an additional texture, which was her eyeballs. So we had to get 3 textures onto one texture just to make this work. Otherwise, we would end up with something which looked all sorts of messed up. So to do this, we had to make a completely new UV map combining all 3 textures into one in order to pull this off and get it working in-game. Now, luckily there is a workaround to this, and the workaround is just to make sure that whatever you're replacing or adding into the game mesh-wise is something which only uses one texture, like I was able to find for the battle bus. But with Maya, this just was not an option, because if I remove her hood, and I'm sure I'll have some Maya footage on screen showing you this right now, weirdly enough, the BL3 Maya head without her hood on she's just bold underneath. In fact, I can kind of show you in game, but I'm sure I have footage on screen. So yeah, she's completely bold underneath, and I say that as in like she doesn't have the long hair pieces, it's just her BO2 hair underneath, which makes sense because you like never see it in Borderlands 3 anyway. But yeah, this creates issues, right? Because if you want BL3 Maya in, you would have to fully UV map it yourself. You can't just remove the hood and call it a day, which is what I kind of wanted to do. And even if that did work, you would still have the issue of like having to put her eyes and her teeth in. And if you don't do that, then you're going to have Demon Maya. Now, I know that the common thing that's going to come up in the comment section is that we could do a full-scale Borderlands 2 remaster with this, but honestly, I've tried it so far. I don't think it looks as good as we would hope it looks. I think you would honestly just need to rebuild the game from scratch if you truly wanted it to look nice. But I do think that this does give a lot of potential for amazing mods. Some of the mods that I've had an idea to make is like, for example, a BL3 version of Claptrap in terms of his model. Or like an updated Handsome Jack model, replacing him with the BL3 model. Ideally, if we can rig it all correctly, we can maybe introduce the BL3 red chest design, or the BL3 washing machines, or lockers and stuff to make updated versions of those. Like, there's so much we can actually do here to bring more life into Borderlands 2, and I really do think this is the biggest discovery of all time for the game, which can breathe a lot of life into it, and bring more attention to the game as a platform for modders to create. I also know that I'm going to have people asking, like, how do you install these mods? How do you make these mods? And I do want to make a tutorial in the future, but because we're so early on, I still want to figure out all the quirks and get all the kinks worked out before I go and tell people like, hey, this is how you do it. So stay tuned for that, and thank you guys so much for your support. Also, a little bit of news here. Soon I am thinking of launching a Patreon. This is something that a lot of people have been asking for so they can support my modding work, and I will be doing that very, very soon. It'll be just like a very basic Patreon for the time being, but when I do future mod overhauls and huge mods, I will be adding tiers which include like playtesting, or like get a gun in the mod, or, you know, get your own gear set or enemy or something, so that could be pretty neat too. But yeah, that does it for this video today. I want to thank you guys for watching. This is a pretty huge breakthrough, and I'll be sure to make more videos on it, updating you with like any huge things we discover. And until the next one, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you later.